Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I wanted to talk about a research study where I was a test subject for about autism and synesthesia, which was done at the KIND institution at Karolinska Institute, which was my medical school and also the biggest center for research on autism in Sweden. So KIND, I don't know exactly what it stands for, but it's Karolinska Institute Neurodevelopmental Disorders, something like that. So they do research on autism and ADHD primarily, but also Tourette's and also other kinds of neurodevelopmental conditions. And a big part of this is how I found the study. I found it before I got my autism diagnosis, and I decided that if I get an autism diagnosis, I will go and do this study. Because I have synesthesia and I have autism, so I'm the perfect test subject for that. As a student, I have been part of many studies, especially at the psychological institution. There was once I went to one of these studies and then they said, I think that you have depression. I was diagnosed like there. And I was like, yeah, but no, I really want my cinema tickets, so don't tell me that I have depression and that I don't qualify for your study. I'm actually doing great, So I might have falsified the studies because I claimed not to have depression when I actually probably did. I have tons of stories about studies I've been to an MRI study where they looked at my brain, didn't tell me at all what they saw about my brain. Now I don't know if there was something special about it because I was autistic, but they didn't know that. I didn't know that. I had to do an IQ test and I never got the results of that. But I did get to see the pictures of my MRI scan, which was cool. I've been part of a study as a control group for anorexia, where I had to leave a saliva sample and I had to leave a fecal sample, and I've been parts of a study where I got electric shocks, mild ones, but to check trauma responses. I've been part of several studies, okay? Some of them you can do online, some of them you have to be there. For the synesthesia study, I didn't have to be there, so I'm grateful for that. The way I found it is that KIND worked in close correlation with another institution at Karolinska called MEB, which is the epidemiological. They look at the epidemiological department. They look at population studies and statistics and data that we have about individuals, but not physically, in paper form, in registers. And that's why I took that for my master's thesis in 2017, because I had a friend who was there and she had already started doing research there, and so she recommended it, and I had a really good supervisor for that study. My study was not published. It gave pretty lousy results, but my research led to creating a bigger study that could maybe show better things. And also I did a lot of data entry, which helped further studies later. Because I was looking at registers of babies born in the 90s, like me, twins. So I was looking at a twin study. So there was this huge group of children in Sweden that were called the Bamse-studie, children born in the 90s, and they followed these children for 25 years of their life. And they're probably still following these people. Because I was born in the 90s, I could have been one of those kids, but I wasn't. But this is a huge group of kids. This is many thousands of kids. And within that study, they made a smaller study group called the STOPA, which were twins. And it's always interesting studying twins, both identical twins and non-identical twins. And so I was studying birth weight and growth within the first 3 to 6 months of the babies, and later asthma. So my theory, I guess, would have been that smaller babies are more likely to develop asthma later on in life, which has been shown in other studies, but not in mine, because my study was too small. And also I wanted to do a pilot kind of thing where I wanted to see if they grew really fast or lost weight very fast in the first month of life. So I looked at growth charts, and I was typing those in, and I was receiving letters from all sorts of schools that were looking at the growth of the children, and I thought that was really interesting. But so I worked with this twin study, and Sweden, I think, is one of the places with the biggest twin studies in the world, because they have such good registers. Sweden is a great place if you want to do register studies, because in Sweden, the entire population, they have personal numbers, like a social security number, except that the personal number is used for everything. And the medical records are very well, there's a lot of registers that you can be part of if you're a Swedish citizen. And so there is so much data that you can use. I think like Denmark has a similar system, but since Denmark is a smaller country, the registers are smaller. But so Sweden is very good for epidemiological studies on registers. So I was doing that on the twin studies. And my colleague, she was also working with that same STOPA group, the twins. These same twins, but she was checking if they developed ADHD in the future. So she was looking on the growth of these children, and if these twins were identical twins, if both of them would get ADHD later in life, or if one got ADHD and not the other, what are the factors for that? So we were both doing things. I was doing more about asthma, she was doing more about ADHD, but so she had a coupling to this institution called KIND that takes care of ADHD and autism research. I also actually had an introduction to autism way before then. I think it must have been 2015, something like that. So 2 years before, we had to do a mini project, and it depended on which researcher you were placed with. And we were a group of around 10, 15 students that were placed with this researcher who researched about autism. And I must admit, I didn't know anything about autism then. And who really did in 2015? I mean, let's be honest here. And I did a study. I did a project where I looked at what studies there were on the subject matter of inflammatory diseases and autism. So, and I was particularly focused on celiac disease, because I was thinking, well, why are there so many autism moms who think that a gluten-free diet is good for their kids? Maybe these kids are more likely to have celiacs if they have autism. And not much information was to be found about this. However, there was a link with inflammatory diseases, such as Crohn's disease, such as rheumatoid arthritis and such in autistic people. So maybe celiac disease, since it's also an inflammatory disease, might also be more common in autistic people. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I kind of forgot about that, and I wasn't like super invested, I guess, at that time. But I remember that he had worked with twin studies, and so I ended up working with this guy later on in 2017. However, not about autism. I was working about twin studies, so that's how I knew this guy. Interestingly enough, I actually have a cousin whose kids are non-identical twins, and one of them has autism and one of them does not. So if they had been Swedish, they would have been part of that study. Anyway, let's turn this around again because I like watching it in the video. Anyway, so this whole story about how I found the study. So I went on their website and I found it, and I know that this institution, KIND, is interested in helping the lives of autistic people and not about just finding a cure for autism. Looking into the genetics of autism is a little bit dangerous territory, let's just say. I'm all for learning about autism and how to help autistic people. There might be some genetic tests that might be interesting, but what I don't want to happen is for autistic people to be ostracized more, to be seen as an aberration, to be aborted. Because I know that this is kind of what has happened with Down syndrome in Sweden. I am pro-abortion, okay? I am pro-choice. At the same time, there has to be a balance, you know? You can't just... it's a complicated topic. I have talked about this before. But so I wanted to be part of a study that wasn't about finding a cure for autism. And that's what I mean. So I found this research study, and I was like, oh, yay, synesthesia. So there was a study that was for twins, that was twins with or without autism and synesthesia. So they had to have synesthesia. They did not have to have autism. So I saw that and I was like, oh, cool, but I'm not a twin. Then I saw that there was another study that was for people who are not twins, but who have both synesthesia and autism. So I was like, oh, yay, great. So I wrote to this guy, this researcher. He has done a lot of studies about autism, and he has done research on twins. He has done research about synesthesia before. He's noticed that a lot of people with autism also have synesthesia because, and like these things are often comorbid, like, you know, often these things go together because of somehow the brain associations. You know, the lack of neuron pruning leads to both autism and synesthesia. So maybe there's a certain kind of neural pruning that is not happening in people with autism and with people with synesthesia. Or maybe there's certain neural pruning that is interesting just for people with synesthesia or just for people with autism that don't have both of these things at the same time. You know, there's a lot that you could study about that. Thing is, all of this is so subjective, you know. So first I got a call from the researcher just to check like what kinds of synesthesia do I have, and if I was willing, like if I was accepting in like all of the terms and conditions, which I did. You know, it's all anonymized and all that, so I'm fine with all of that. And then he sent me a link to digital test where and he only sends this if you have synesthesia for like color, and for me I have letters, numbers, days of the week, and the months are all related to color. So that's why he sent me this test. Basically you're given like a letter pops on the screen, and then you have RGB palette, like spectrum, that you pinpoint which of the colors, like which color out of, you know, all these hundreds and hundreds of colors, which one fits the letter or whatever. And so you'll have R, for example, and then they'll have P, and then they'll have A, and then they'll have F, and then they'll have R again. So, and they'll have the same letter repeated 3 times throughout the test. So 27 times 3 amount of letters that you have to go through. And then you have to go through the numbers, and you have to go through the days of the week and the months. So it took me a while. But I'm pretty certain about which color fits, you know? And if you are a synesthete, all 3 times that you have done this letter, you will have very little variation between all 3 times, because you're so certain that, you know, for me, R is dark green. So I know that the shade of green that I want. And so I'm picking that. If you don't have synesthesia, then you might rely on memory, and you'll be like, oh wait, what did I choose? You know, did I choose green for R, or did I choose blue for R? And then you might mess up, you know. And my test studies show that basically I'm a synesthete. I really do have synesthesia, because all of the colors, it was amazing how similar all of the color shades of the 3 times looked. It looked like the same color almost, you know. And I was like, oh, this is so satisfying as well, because seeing the letters combined with the colors on the screen looks very nice to me, you know. It looks nice. It's like, you know, it was very satisfying. So I saw all of the numbers and all of the days of the week, and everything was very nicely presented at the end. And then I had a telephone interview with the researcher, and he asked me a lot of questions about both autism and synesthesia, and like if synesthesia helped me in any way, if it hurt me in any way, if there was anything that linked autism and synesthesia. And it was supposed to be a half hour. We ended up talking for 45 minutes. You know, it goes deep real fast, you know, because this is talking about like your entire perception of the world. You know, I was thinking of like, you know, how in different, also I told him I speak different languages, and how different languages have different colors in my head because different words mean the same thing. And it was like making these videos. I love doing them. I love talking about how I perceive things. And so here was a very interested researcher who was recording everything I was saying. And so he was asking me, you know, do you get overwhelmed by your perceptions? And I said, actually, I don't. Like, it's not, certain people with synesthesia can actually see the colors in front of them, and so it might be overwhelming for them. For me, it's not the case. For me, it's not overwhelming because I kind of switch it off. I just associate it in my head. but I do associate certain things. He did say, like, how does synesthesia help your autism? And I said, well, it helps me with memory, because I can remember things better when I have, like, I remember like the color of the word that I'm thinking of, and that will make me remember the word afterwards. And also it's a kind of stim for me to think of the colors of certain things. And also it's a kind of comfort, because my friends have different colors as well. Their personalities and their names and everything have different colors to me. And so if I see that color, I will be reminded of my best friend. It actually does affect my life, because I buy things with certain colors to remind me of certain people and certain memories. And yeah, I think that's a very INFP kind of discussion that was going on there, you know? It was like, oh, how do you perceive the world? How does it give you meaning? And, you know, all of this philosophical stuff, but that is centered around the self, is what I think INFPs love doing, just love talking about. Oh, I actually, as I'm talking to you guys, I have this, this is the color of my best friend, dark green, like a forest. Yeah, I actually got this tote bag because, and it reminds me of him every time, which is weird. Also, my sofa is the same color. So we joke, me and my ISFJ best friend, about the color of my sofa. I don't know if there was a connection there, but it makes us feel closer to one another, you know? So he was asking about, you know, and so it does help me in certain social situations, I guess, to be able to intuitively manage conversations by feeling the emotions of that other person through the colors of their emotions. However, it doesn't really help. Sometimes it just feels bad. Sometimes the interaction just feels bad and I don't know what is going on. Like maybe a neurotypical person might be able to understand that, oh, this person is angry because of this thing. Or, oh, this person, you know, looks sad rather than disappointed. You know, like I'll see that somebody is not feeling well. I'll see that something is not going great in our conversation, and I'll be like, are they angry at me? Are they just having a bad day? Did their parent just die? I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the surface, you know, and I won't notice the social cues that they will be giving me, I guess. So I'll just be thinking, that's weird. This conversation isn't going too well, but like I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to, right? And then it's like, I had missed something humongous, you know? So unfortunately my synesthesia is not helping me with that. My synesthesia does not help me with my sensory sensitivities. You know, there are certain sounds I just hate. Some music has color to me. Some sounds have color, but most of the time they don't. I think that I had more of that when I was little. And I did tell him about how Björk's song, Emotional Landscapes Yoga, is one of the most beautiful songs. So we were going into like really deep stuff, you know, about how I see the world. So it was weird once the conversation ended. And I did have to tell him, at the end he was like, is there anything that you would like to add now that we're not, you know, we're not being recorded and such. And so I said that I'm so thankful that I could be part of this research project, because this is kind of a dream come true for me. I used to have a Tumblr blog in 2015. I didn't tell him it was Tumblr, but I said I discovered synesthesia when I was 15, and I had always thought that it would be cool to talk about, like to do research about it, and to be able to have my different perceptions leads to research into why this is happening in people's brains. And so I thanked him for that, because it is a little bit of a dream come true, you know. When I was 15, did I know that I was going to, you know, have gone through medical school and worked at a research place that was close to a research clinic that did research about synesthesia? Did I know that I would get an autism diagnosis and that this would contribute to research on both synesthesia and autism? No, I had no idea about all of this. So I'm very happy that I could be part of that. I hope that they'll publish the research study results at some point. In the meantime, I got 350 crowns, which is about $35 for this. So I'm glad. I'm going to be using the gift card at some point, if I don't forget. I'm also being part of another more long-term research project as a study person as well, called ICF Core, which is about problems with executive functioning in adults with or without autism. And I started the study not having an autism diagnosis, and now I told the researchers, actually, I now have an autism diagnosis, so please put me in the other group. So now they have. So I'll probably be getting those are just questionnaires. So I'll have a questionnaire in a few months probably about like, how are these tools working for you and that kind of thing. So yeah, things are exciting. I hope that you're having a good day.